Welcome again to Business is Personal. I have with me today Michelle Strydom. She is the creator of Sales is Fun, the training program, and she's so good at sales, and you're going to love this conversation. We're going to talk about how to deal with procurement people. We're going to talk about enjoying the sales process, and we're going to talk about how to be expert listeners without asking the wrong questions. Do you feel disconnected at work? Are you feeling exhausted? Almost like you hate your job and secretly maybe your boss too? This is Business is Personal, a blueprint to discovering and creating meaning at work in collaboration with Smashy TV, a live streaming service in the Middle East for the driven, the dreamers, and the doers. Hi, I'm really excited to have Michelle Strydom join me. She is the founder and CEO of the SMG Group and the inventor of Sales is Fun, which kind of sounds like an oxymoron to people like me. I don't really enjoy sales. I'm pretty good at it, but I don't enjoy it, and I wouldn't necessarily say sales is fun. So I'm really excited to talk to you today and find out what that means to you. Tell our audience out there a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, hi everybody. First of all, it's so great to see you again, Corrie, after a little while. It's been a couple of years, but good to be back. And yes, in the time that I haven't seen you, sales is fun, which to most people, sales ain't fun.
That's right.
It's hard to sell. It's not easy. It's more of a struggle.
Yeah.
And I get that. But actually, sales can be really fun and enjoyable when you know what to do and how to execute it.
So is it just a methodology then? Like it's a strategy that makes it fun because they have control over what they're doing?
So it's basically what happened is during the last call it 2 years, the Sales is Fun, I created Sales is Fun, and the Sales is Fun program was born.
Right.
So it is not a theoretical, technical, hard to apply. This is a behavioral-based program that really you can apply very effectively in the virtual sales world.
Fantastic.
And in person, that's going to improve your sales results. And why not enjoy sales when you know what to do and how to do it?
Right.
Because when you're happier and you're feeling great, you're 20% more productive.
Right.
And I'm sure for my CEOs out there, they'd love a 20% increase in sales results.
Right. That's true. Okay, so if I was going to parse between sales and marketing, I'm actually probably okay at sales. Like I like the conversation when I'm sitting with a potential client and saying, hey, this is the value I can deliver. Yes. This is the ROI. This is how much money you're going to make, and the profitability is all good. Yes. And like I'm good at that. Yes. What I don't like is the marketing side before that. So I think maybe you're right. Sales can be fun, but is it fun because it's always I don't want to say it's not a battle, but it's a banter, right? When you're in sales. I'm proving value, and I want to prove to you that whatever value I provide is worth more than whatever value you're providing to me, and my interlocutor is trying to do the same.
Yes.
So it's a bit like an elegant form of war, right?
It is, but I think generally, the sales leaders and sales teams that I generally work with, we get so worked up and tense the way we're refraining sales. What is sales exactly? So sales is having a conversation, and I think when we built the Sales is Fun methodology and process, it's based on the real world, highly effective, because we're turning up, Corrie, to have a conversation, to be able to really connect with that client and to be informed and find out exactly not only what their issue is, being able to speak to them in a way that makes them comfortable.
Right.
Because that doesn't always happen. And it's not about us being a telling seller. Yeah. It's about actually having a conversation that allows that purchaser or buyer to make the best business decision for them. And yes, of course, ROI goes with that.
Right. Yes. Okay, so the challenge that I have with that on my brand, because if you've ever followed me on social media, you'll see I've got promos for my books and courses and stuff like that. And I feel like it's a bit too salesy sometimes. I feel like maybe if I'm too salesy, then it's coming across as inauthentic. Yes. And I really do genuinely want people to benefit from hanging out with me for a little bit, right? But I don't want it to feel salesy. So where's the dividing line there between authentic and inauthentic when you're coming to trying to present yourself and connect with another person that you have an agenda to sell to?
Yes. I think that it's such an excellent question because it's so relevant for all of us.
Well, we have that agenda, right?
Of course, of course. And, you were going in to win because you don't want, the client you're working with to, buy from your competitor, not you. What's the point?
Yes. Well, of course, that's war. That's the part of sales that's war, because if you don't make the sale, somebody else makes the sale, and then resources flow to their team.
Yes.
And they feed their families and educate their kids and take care of their parents and pay for their medical bills and put gas in their cars, right? And we don't want that. We need to win. So sales is war, but it's an elegant war. And I struggle a little bit with that balance. If you follow my feed, if you criticize my feed, you'll see I struggle with the balance of providing the kind of authenticity that really shows people I do actually want to impact the quality of their lives. And I do believe that the products and services that I provide will do that.
Yes.
But I don't want it to be pretentious or fake. You know, and I struggle with that balance. I know I do personally, and I think a lot of people in sales do.
Yeah, and for me, how do you overcome that hurdle? Because it can be an obstacle for all of us. And for me, the only way you can do that authentically, Corrie, is I've got to truly understand what is the behavior style of the prospect sitting in front of me.
Right.
Because remember, people are going to respond to you and be comfortable with you if you are acting in a way that makes them feel comfortable. If you are communicating to me in a way that suits my behavior style in terms of what drives the way I act, the how of what I do. So if we're just showing up, which typically happens with most salespeople, so I'm going to meet Corrie, I'm going to show up and just be myself. Well, if you do that, you're going to be right only 25% of the time.
Right.
Now, it's my job, certainly, to work with my clients to make you 75% right most of the time.
Of course.
But how do you do that? You've got to strike an emotional chord with the person that you're connecting with.
I totally agree with you.
And they're going to be different because not two human beings are alike and the same. So how do we understand that? And it all comes down to, first of all, let me recognize what is my style, who am I?
Right.
And if I'm connecting with someone who is totally opposite, I've got to be able to understand, you know, people are going to connect and want to work with you and buy from you if they perceive you to be like them.
Right.
And if I'm not feeling comfortable because Corrie's in his face and like, wow, this is a big salesy guy, whoo, you know, pull him back sort of thing, then I'm going to say, well, the guy coming in is a bit more put back, a bit more moderate in pace, a bit more reserved, speaks in a language that is music to my ears. That is the difference often between winning and losing, and that's the core platform of our programs.
Well, I've heard that a lot actually. First of all, the messenger is the message, right? And secondly, you have to tailor the message to the buyer, which is nearly impossible to do online. Right? Because if I'm posting something on LinkedIn or whatever, then I can't tailor it. It goes to everybody, and it's for mass communication. And like you said, 75% of the people just aren't going to connect because it's going to connect with like a quarter of the population. But if I'm doing it one-on-one, if I'm selling one-on-one, then it's a lot easier for me to connect with someone, and it's a lot easier for me to do it authentically because I know who they are, and my sense of curiosity about who they are, their pain points, what they're looking for, you know, what kind of puzzles can I solve for them. That's really helpful. And I think the role of listening in sales is so under-taught that we have to be expert listeners when normally we're hiring salespeople who are expert talkers.
And that in today's, especially virtual selling, is a no-no, honestly. I always say it's got to be the 80-20. I've got to be talking 20% maximum because, you know, at the end of the day, it's everything that I want to understand about what's going on in your world as my customer. So how am I going to do that if I'm doing all the talking? And I mean, research has actually told us that the top three frustrations of a buyer in a virtual world is that the seller's not listening to me. And they're not, number one is they're not understanding my concerns and really what the problems are and how they can help me through that. So listening is a big, big one, and really if you're conversing with your clients in that virtual space, I know we're in a hybrid world and you and I can meet in person, but a lot of places in the world, it's virtual. And it's not going anywhere. So how am I going to close you virtually when, you know, remember the tolerance level of our prospects is very short virtually. So when you screw up, it's unforgiven.
That's right.
You know, you're not going to get a second chance. So when I'm connecting with you, it better really count to make that first impression. Yeah,
I totally agree with you. It's so easy to get canceled by a prospective buyer if you say the wrong thing in the wrong way or you say even the right thing in the wrong way. I think it's important for salespeople. I know that the tools of Zoom, the virtual communications, that's a lot better than just a phone call, and that's a lot better than just an email. Email is, I think, the lowest form of communication on the planet, and phone calls are better, and Zoom is even better than that. But I've had to discipline myself when I'm in a sales call with a potential client is I'm not making eye contact with the person on the screen. I'm making eye contact with this little inhuman dot at the top of my computer, and if I'm disciplined to do that, then the person on the other side is gonna see that. They'll make eye contact with me, and at least in their brain, it'll produce a little bit of oxytocin, and that'll help me to connect with them, and they'll trust my authenticity better.
Correct.
In that sense. But it's those little tweaks, I think, that really make sales more of an art.
Absolutely.
Now, especially now that we're doing a lot of it digitally.
Yeah. And I think to your point, that is why sales professionals, and to be honest, even leaders, when you're dealing to another C-suite leader, you have to be prepared. You've got to prepare more and carve out that time to do that properly, because kind of just showing up and winging it.
Right.
I mean, today when the competition is absolutely rough in any industry, the preparation is key.
Right.
And I mean, if you look at 82% of CEOs and SVPs say that salespeople are just unprepared. That's a huge amount of people.
And it's unforgivable. Like you're
is.
the front line of the war.
Exactly.
Like all of the money that comes into the entire organization to feed all of the families, educate all of the kids, all of it comes in through the front line sales.
Correct.
That's it. In whatever form it is, digital sales or human or procurement, whatever it is, your frontline sales brings all of the money in. So if anybody's ever going to get paid and fed and go on vacation and retire, it's going to happen through a salesperson. So having unprepared salespeople or salespeople that don't understand that they are the front line in the war, I think that's maybe unforgivable in the sales. Okay, so let's take the front line of the war and make it fun, right? So that's your thesis, is let's make the front line of the war super fun. And give us 3 things that you would say salespeople need to pay attention to in order to better enjoy the sales process.
To better enjoy the sales process, I would definitely advocate is you have to understand what is driving my behavior. So what is my dispersonality style?
As a buyer, you mean?
Yeah, me first, as a seller. Because once I know I am a particular profile, whatever it is, I'm a dominant profile, and I'm going to be showing up because I've done research on Corrie, and wow, this, what I've made out, I can see that he's a steadiness profile. So if I'm showing out as going up and connecting with you through that experience virtually, and I'm being dominant, it is going to be a problem. Just connecting with that buyer. Never mind starting to get into a conversation to understand how I can help you. They won't even let you through the front door.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So that's got to be a starting point.
They'll ghost you before you begin.
Totally. So once I'm connecting correctly, and then you never hear from them and what went wrong, and the boss says, well, Michelle, is that in the bag? Well, I think they like me. Well, hang on. Are they talking to you? No. So then clearly there's a problem.
Yeah, that's right.
So you've got to be able to strike an emotional chord.
Yeah, I
virtually
agree.
One person, the same, has to apply. And once we've done that, it's how we can really build up through that authentic conversation, connecting with purpose, building up trust. Because no one's going to buy from someone they don't trust.
Right.
So how do we actually connect with trust and be able to then really understand how we can, as a subject matter expert, bring some insights to the conversation?
Right, but then winning's not the goal, winning's the byproduct.
Correct. Because if you and I connect, and I'm actually bringing value to giving you things to talk about that, I know feeds into the challenges you're facing, something that you haven't considered before. And then it's really uncovering what it is you're looking for. How's the decision-making process going to look like?
Yes, sure.
Because the problem is we underestimate, we deal with our day-to-day admin person or the HR or whoever it is, or the technical director. And then, that person really, Corrie, I want to go with you. And then we haven't got to that web of influence where there's another 5, 6 different people. Because the buying process is complex today.
It's true.
5 to 12 people that are going to decide if they're going to hire you or not.
Yeah, now like I see this too. Look, sales is always human, right? At the end of the day, whether you're talking about a supplier or a sales representative or a key account manager, with a purchaser or a procurement manager, it's going to be a person. Talking to another person, deciding whether or not they trust. And that's it. It's going to be based on trust, which is measured in oxytocin, right? So it's going to be tiny little minute levels of oxytocin that are going to decide whether these $100 million contracts get signed or not. But usually on the other side of those individuals, the seller and the buyer, there's a team. Right? A team of key stakeholders, let's say inside the organization, maybe right up to the CEO, who have to sign off on it. And so you have to be able to vicariously build trust through your representative on the other team to their stakeholders as well. So we kind of have to be able to see in the dark, right? Who are the stakeholders and what do they want, right? Because the decision maker might not be the person you're talking to.
high probability, if you're just a sales manager, that it isn't, Corrie, to be honest. And that is why when I had the time to kind of walk through, you know, from a sales as fun perspective, how do you, the problem I really, really believe that sets sales professionals back is they don't ask the right questions. Because when you just ask a professional question, whatever it is, formal or informal, they're not going to not answer you.
Right.
So in terms of the decision-making process, Corrie, who's going to decide who gets awarded this contract for my product or my service, whatever I'm selling? So specifically around, you know, the sales as fun side, it's bringing in normal conversations, knowing what are the right questions to ask, where are the other stakeholders sitting, because I also want to understand from you, what is your key business issues today? Because a CEO could have a totally different view and articulate, listen, we're on a merger and acquisition where the guy in front of me is saying to me, we want to just, you know, save on top line or bottom line and make some chops and find some efficiencies through our suppliers. So there's different messages. So then I want to get my boss to meet that person's boss. And it's knowing what to do and how to do it without compromising your relationship. Because I also want you to tell me, what do you expect of me?
Yeah, of course.
What do you expect from me as a potential partner, you know, a sales trainer or a sales coach, whatever it is? You've got to tell me, well, hang on, this is my wish list.
Yeah, definitely. And I think sellers are getting a little bit more, they're getting smarter. At least they are with me.
Yes.
Now, here's a controversial
topic,
okay? Do you advocate stalking the stakeholders and decision makers online in order to learn about them before or during the sales process? Like, is that ethical practice? If you're going to go in with an agenda to sell, right, you might as well have the agenda to know the people that you're going to sell to, and therefore you might as well stalk them a little bit online, look at their LinkedIn profile, find out where they studied, what are they commenting on, what are the important things, and see if you can use that to bridge the gap and open up that trust. Is that inauthentic, or is that just really good sales?
That is really good sales. I like this guy. Seriously. Because to me, if you don't do it, it's a cardinal sin, especially in the digital world that we're in.
Right.
Corrie, if you're not social selling, you know, I mean, it is just, to me, it's unthinkable because there is nothing you can't find out. Remember, don't think. And my biggest deal came from a CEO actually spending a lot of time on my LinkedIn checking me out. Why? Because you wanted to see if I was a waste of his time or not.
Exactly.
And I get that. So my advice, sales leaders, sales professionals, you've got to be, that comes back to that carving out time of researching all the social media channels. And if I want to connect with you and you're a stranger, I have got to socially get into that social selling space. And exactly that, it's social selling. It's not hardcore.
Right.
How do I connect? How do I comment on your wonderful posts, on your podcast, and ask a question that really is relating to what you're doing to strike a conversation without it having spoken?
Well, it's not that far away from dating, is it?
Absolutely, but we want to flirt before you ask me out on the first date.
Right. Look, if you're interested in somebody romantically, you're going to stalk them online, and it's not nefarious, right? It's not manipulative. You just want to find out what they're interested in and whether or not those interests match with yours, and you want to come up with interesting conversations so that the next time you go out, you have something to hit the ground with, and you can build that trust really quickly. And she or he is doing the same thing.
They are.
Okay, that's not nefarious. That's not manipulative.
Not at all.
That's really good social selling.
Absolutely.
And we do it all the time. And I think that it's something that we don't take advantage of enough.
Correct.
Especially in B2B sales, right? Because we have humans on the other side making decisions. And those humans, they really do legitimately need to be able to trust you.
Absolutely.
And the fastest way to that trust is that authenticity and that bit of knowledge and that bit of connection. And that's not inauthentic.
Absolutely.
Right?
And you don't, you know, we always think, oh, how do I do it? It's just do it. You know, most of the time as sales professionals, we procrastinate. Make a contact and really understand the world that your customer comes from.
Right.
Know as much as you can about their industry. Because then you come across as a thought leader, then you can at least bring value to the table, or at least, you know, I always said, depends on what you're selling. Nobody should know what you're selling better than you do.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, so you got to be building that bridge, and trust is not handed out on a plate. You got to earn it, as you say that.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I think a lot of, in large organizations, I work in a lot of large organizations like Microsoft and others, they have procurement processes that are designed specifically to remove the element of trust building from the purchasing decision. And in some things, that's that can probably be fine. If you were buying a lot of 50 million screws,
Yes.
a screw is a screw. You can probably remove, as long as you've got your quality assurance and everything is lined up, then you can remove the trust thing. But in L&D, like what you do is in sales is fun, sales training, that is an art.
Absolutely.
And that it is not created equal, and it is impossible. One of the biggest challenges that my clients have is trying to put me into the procurement process and compare me with 2 other service providers so they can decide what a fair price is for my services. And the problem is that I've written everything that I teach, right? If somebody else can teach it, let them teach it. If somebody else can do it, let them do it. I only do things now that only I can do, and you're probably very close to the same in your career.
Absolutely.
So it's nearly impossible from a procurement process. And I have had great conversations with the head of procurement from a number of organizations where they've said, yeah, you know what? It's just impossible to benchmark this because it's so original and so unique and provides that kind of value. We just can't measure it against something else.
Absolutely.
So I think there are times when we can remove the trust process from procurement, and I think there are times when it's detrimental to remove trust from the selling process.
It is, because to me, in the end of the day, it hurts the client.
That's right.
More than you, because they're not getting the best result. And if they had to not work with you and choose B or C, I mean, their results in terms of what they're going to get out of it would be totally different as if they'd appointed you and worked with you. And that's the reality. But to actually, procurement people are really where salespeople go to die. So sorry, that's a bit.
Oh no!
So
I've got some good friends in procurement.
Sorry, procurement and I. But I love procurement people. But it is if they could never lay eyes on a salesperson and have zero interaction, that would be the best of everything. And in certain procurement processes, it is warranted, as you say, because it's not necessary. And I respect that tremendously. But when you've got something that has got a group of complex buyers that are stakeholders that are going to decide it's Corrie or it's not, then it raises the procurement process to a different level.
Right.
And the bigger the opportunity, when it's hundreds of millions, I mean, the more complex it is, because buying processes now are taking a lot longer.
Yeah, that's right.
Depending what it is, of course.
So my advice to those my advice to you in procurement, if you're in procurement, is to divide between those things that are commoditized and should, have the relationship taken out of the procurement process, and those other things that are a lot more artistic, like the L&D processes that, I'm only using that as an example because that's the space that I'm in, where it's important for you to interview the service provider. You should be treating yourself as the representative, not just of a treasury, but as a representative of a tribe. And as the representative of a tribe, you need to have an interview with these people whose influence you're going to bring into your tribal culture and influencing your economic community, your company. So I think there is that dividing line between procurement processes that should remove emotion from selling and those procurement processes that should include and even encourage that kind of buildup of trust and authenticity and relationship. Because my best core clients are clients I've been working with over and over and over again for years because we built that relationship. And even though I'm not on their payroll, I'm a part of the family. And I wake up thinking about how to solve their problems. And I go to sleep thinking about how to encourage their leaders. And that, for me, is personal, very personal. I think the procurement, and in those organizations, I can tell you, I also have a personal relationship with the heads of procurement.
Right.
And they've done a good job of making sure that my influence is of more value to them than it is to me.
Because they're very important in business, jokes aside, procurement.
Yeah, that's right.
But they are, and I think it's important, as you said, you can have an interview with different, suppliers or vendors or whoever you're trying to hire.
Exactly right.
And you can still have that scorecard where you are judging the value and the uniqueness of each one. But I love what you said, because I work incredibly hard with my clients to be an extension of their team.
Yeah, good.
And, I generally work with CEOs or sales leaders or sales teams all around the world.
Yeah, brilliant.
Entrepreneurs, business owners. So, I like to be able to add value in terms of you don't have to be always a big multinational, but it's also the startup, the entrepreneur that is also a business engine that, again, wants to be successful, because sales is the lifeblood of any organization.
Okay,
which
so
is key.
Let me ask you a question. This is a big debate that I have internally. I have always hired for sales based solely on character. I don't even really care about the CV. Are you the same? Is it a character-driven role?
I wouldn't go purely on character.
Okay.
Because people can contrive character as well, especially if they're really good at putting that on.
Well, we've got psychometrics that can measure that, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, as long as it's backed up by psychometric.
Okay, so what would you use as a psychometric for measuring talented salespeople?
Yeah, I would definitely do, I mean, again, as a certified behavior emotional intelligence, that's obviously a part that, you know, I'm pretty qualified in too. And I bring in how do you sell with emotional intelligence, by the way. So that's in my program.
Nice.
Coming back to your question, is it's doing the psychometrics that are going to tell me how you're going to sell. In other words, the behavior factors. I want to know what intrinsically motivates you. So what is driving you, the why of your actions? Because I can say, great, you know, great character, you know, I want to work with Corrie, but you know, if your driver's on conflict to mine, then something's going to unravel at some stage. And leaders don't know that because we'll only know that if we know people over a longer period of time. And I also want to know emotionally and how you're driven from an emotional and social competency perspective. So the emotional intelligence, EQ piece will come in there. So that to me tells me a lot about you inside and out. And of course, character is a big thing, but I also want to see, you know, the past successes and really having conversations around what you have achieved and how you've been through good or bad situations. You know, I always say, if you've got somebody who hasn't maybe aced everything in sales, but they've got the right attitude, you can guide them, mentor them, and teach them to be a megastar.
That's exactly my point.
But if I come in as a top guy or girl and, you know, it's kind of my way or the highway, then they're unteachable. I'll never forget one of my mentors said, well, Michelle, some people are just not, you won't be able to train them. I said, rubbish, I can train everybody.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I came across one or two. I thought, maybe it's a bit right. Yeah.
Well, nobody's perfect, right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
So what psychometrics do you use? I commonly use the Jung typology, the MTI, and I also use StrengthsFinder.
Yes.
From Gallup.
Yes.
And you use DISC, is that right?
Yeah, I use DISC. I've been using DISC for over 20 years now, Corrie.
Okay.
So DISC is the organization I've been with, been around there, sort of the four fronts, TTI, SI. So DISC would be the personality one that I advocate, that all of my clients use with huge success. And, you know, I go very deep in terms of what is not telling you in the report.
Right.
So that's a skill that I bring, you know, because it's not just about, you know, what is the red telling me because I'm 80 out of 100.
Right.
I'm looking at all four of those styles and those colors because that makes up the total being of you and the uniqueness of you.
So if I was a CEO looking to have you hire and train my sales staff and you did the DISC, what degree of confidence would you have that you can say, this is going to be a successful salesperson and this is their style of selling?
I'm 150% confident.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of clients just hire me to say, well, you know, I do programs with them and they say, can you come back and just go deep on the DISC? Because I bring a growth, sales, culture, and language through DISC to organizations. Because, and also remember, the biggest battle sometimes in huge organizations is internally because sales are going to get on with operations and HR and all the stuff. So, you know, often outside is the easy part.
Right.
So building bridges, and DISC to me is the, you know, it's a universal language of human emotions. So how do I ensure that we can build strong bridges? Because if I need you to help me and my sales team be successful, I've got to really get into your world and make you comfortable with me.
Well, I've never done DISC, so you should probably do my DISC.
Well, I think because he's asked me, I think there could be a complimentary one coming. With pleasure, Corrie, with Corrie. And then I'm going to debrief you and we're going to have a lot of fun.
That's going to be amazing.
Oh, we're going to have a lot of fun.
Okay, so last question.
Okay.
What parts of your work, your day-to-day work, do you find the most meaningful to you personally?
The part of my day that's the most meaningful is actually when I am engaged with training leaders or sales teams, learning from them. Learning from them, and I just have the pleasure and really the gift of working with different clients in different countries. So, you know, understanding how their sales world works.
Right.
I mean, that gives me a buzz and a high. And because no two sessions are the same, and I'm yet to have, touch wood up to now, since our little embryo and our sales fund was born, I'm yet to have a client say, wow, that wasn't the best thing and the most fun thing we ever did.
Oh, amazing.
And we look at things differently. So, touch wood, put me to the test.
Yeah,
but
amazing.
That's what gets me up.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you for sharing your time with me. and with us. It's been such a privilege to have you here and to see you again. It's so good after so long.
I know, it's been far too
amazing,
long.
right?
It's been not far too long. And Maya, I've thought of something.
Go on.
Great one. If you don't mind.
Sure.
Just to add value to the audience, if you're really interested in understanding what is my disc natural style, what am I like at home versus my adapted style at work, the world-class assessments that I work with on disc with my clients is normally valued at $100. But for the audience and to add some value to say thank you to you, if I may, I'd like to offer, if anyone's interested, a disc assessment.
Oh, fantastic.
For $25.
Oh,
as
fantastic.
a special. Maybe
That's
as
great.
a promotion for the next 3 days.
Oh, that's really good. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's really generous.
The audience
Thank you.
I invite you, you're welcome to please go to my website, Michelle, Michelle, Michelle.
We'll put the link up.
Okay, put it up. Michelle
then
at
it's easy.
salesisfun.com and look for the little red button that says disc. And let's find out with pleasure. $25. I'd love to help you become better sellers, better leaders, whoever you are.
That's great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And it's so good to see you again.
You too. Thanks so much for inviting me. So great
Thank you for
hanging
being on
out.
the show. Cheers.
Thank you so much. All the best.
Bye. Do you feel disconnected at work? Are you feeling exhausted? Almost like you hate your job and secretly, maybe your boss too? This is Business is Personal, a blueprint to discovering and creating meaning at work in collaboration with Smashy TV, a live streaming service in the Middle East for the driven, the dreamers, and the doers.